Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. Today I'm very excited to announce, today we are doing our first round of Ask Me Anything. So if you guys don't already know, this is an incredible opportunity where you can literally ask us anything.
Please do.
We've already had quite a few people ask us questions, so we're super excited about that. But the link is down below. Essentially the idea here, you guys, is that you volunteer up a question that's been coming up for you in the twin flame journey or something that you're struggling with in order for us to answer here on our channel and potentially other social media platforms in the future, so that we can help more people that might also have the same questions or be struggling with the same thing. So this is a really cool opportunity for you to get your question answered by, twin flame professionals, as we like to call ourselves, and also for other people to learn, and also for us to stay fresh on the content we're making. A lot of the content that we make comes from our own minds and what we're working through, but it's always helpful to know what you guys have questions on and what you're moving through in this moment. So I just want to start off by saying, if you haven't already, definitely check out that link and ask us a question. So this is our first iteration. What do you think?
Pretty exciting. There's some very interesting questions that came up, and it's going to be, I think, quite a cool new dynamic to our channel.
Yeah, I think so too. So first off today, just to let you guys know, we're going to basically, depending on the question, it may be one full long piece of content, or it might be a few questions in one video. So if you have asked a question, be sure to watch the video in its entirety so that you can find out if your question is the first question, second question, third question, or maybe one question is just for a full video. So we'll try and let you guys know, at least in the description, how many questions we're answering per video, so that you have an idea of when and where your question is going to be answered. But the cool thing about this form is we basically just take your first name and your question to make sure that when we respond, you know that it's actually your response. So without further ado, today we have two questions, so they kind of play into each other, which is why we're answering them on the same video. So we're going to run through the whole thing, okay? And we're going to actually read the questions verbatim, because I think this is super cool, and it's so exciting to me. So this first question is by a subscriber, Serena. And she says, "Hey there, I'm a twin flame chaser and my runner is currently ghosting me. Now I'm trying to focus on myself, but I'm unsure about how to actually start working towards inner union. Can you make a video, or do you already have one that I didn't find, about what steps I can take to get there? And I'm doubting a lot at the moment, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know about twin flames. He just knows he's never felt like this before. Can working on myself, getting into inner union, still bring us into physical union, or does he have to know and consciously choose to work on it as well? Thanks for your help and best wishes, Serena."
Thanks, Serena.
Thanks, Serena. It's kind of funny because I was called Rena a lot. It's short for Serena, so I was called Rena a lot growing up. So it's kind of funny. But thank you, Rena, for your question. So basically, I think this is a really good question. I think it's a question a lot of twin flames wonder about, as 3:33 is hitting on the clock there. So a lot of twin flames wonder about this. What is the degree here of, if I do the work, what of this journey can I control, right? Can I bring us into union together through my own act of working through inner union? And the answer to that would be
yes.
No.
No. Well,
you can get to inner union.
You can get to it, but you can't necessarily get your partner to inner union. So it depends how you want that question to be looked at. But yes, essentially, you can get to your own inner union by doing the work. But in order for your partner to get there as well, or your twin flame, if that's where you want to get to, you both need to consciously choose to do this together, because if one person is not conscious of what's happening, it makes it a lot more difficult. Not impossible, but just more difficult, and maybe a little bit less likely for that to come about.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think also a really big part of this question that she's asking, oh, my twin flame has no idea about twin flames. Now that alone doesn't mean you can't come into union, right? I full-heartedly believe that there are twin flames on this earth, doing light work and doing work for others, but they don't necessarily identify as twin flames, right? I don't think you knowing that you're a twin flame means that you will come into union, and it doesn't also mean that you won't, right? So what's really interesting is I was quote unquote the runner in our situation. You were quote unquote the chaser for most of the time. And you didn't know what twin flames were.
I was clueless.
Right. And so, but you still, where James was talking earlier about consciously deciding to do the work, that work, this brings up a really good point too. Okay, so Rena, this might be what you're going through. So what ends up usually happening in a lot of masculine and feminine dynamics, right? So Rena, you're obviously female, and then probably your twin flame is the male. And what ends up happening is the females where a lot of times will work through things energetically, spiritually, and emotionally, whereas the males will play things out on a very physical level. They're more grounded, they're more connected to physical reality, so they will actually play things out in physical reality. This is why we see a lot of DMs or a lot of masculine characters with third parties, right? Or in a third party situation, because they're actually learning the lessons on a physical place rather than reaching into the 5D and reaching into the astral realms and doing the work spiritually and energetically. That's a very feminine way to process your inner world and your wounds and things like that. So keep that in mind, that while they might not look on the outside like they're consciously doing the work, they're actually if they're playing it out in physical reality, then what is happening is they're making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. So it might look on the other side like, oh, they're sleeping with a bunch of people, or they blocked me, or they ghosted me, or they're in a third party relationship. They clearly aren't doing anything. No, that is actually them doing something. And it seems super backward, because it's like, well, if they cared about me at all, why would they do these things? But it's just the way they process. They need to play things out in the physical reality in order to, it's like two different poles, right? So the women, they need to move through something energetically and emotionally for it to affect their physical reality. Where men are the opposite. They need to move through it physically in order for it to affect their emotional and energetic bodies. Agreed. So it's just a different way of processing. We found this a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be differences, especially in the masculine, feminine, male and female, the way we process things. And that also doesn't make it exclusively that it's going to be, this way is for females and this way is for males. It can also flip-flop as well. But the important thing is just to be conscious and to actually know that you're doing the work. If you can go through those two steps, doesn't matter in what way you went about it, the fact that you're doing it and you're aware of it, that is the part that actually counts. I mean, if I think of the way that we deal with things, you'll sit there and go through them from A to Z 2 or 3 times to figure out exactly where things come from and how they affect you and why it's coming up, and you'll really dive deep into it on an energetic level. Where me, I'll be like, when I'm ready, it will come to me and I'll sort it out. I'll carry on doing other things in the meantime, but at no point during that process am I ignoring it or being dismissive or unconscious of it. Like, it's still very much aware of it. It's just your processing ways are different. And I mean, that's just 2 examples of processing, and there's so many other different ways that you can process things. So it just comes down to, for one, being openly communicative with each other, making sure you're actually consciously saying what you actually feel and how you want to go about things, so that the other person can be aware of it. And as well, allowing them time to really have that sink in. With, I mean, for some people it might be 30 seconds. For some people it might be like a month before things really sink in. They're like, okay, yes, it finally actually sets with me. And neither one of those two are right or wrong. It just comes down to your own processing way of identifying these things and working through it. Yeah.
And so just to reiterate, it doesn't matter really if the other person knows about twin flames or knows that you guys are twin flames, so long as they're willing to do the work, whatever that may look like, right? And so they might not necessarily consciously identify it as doing the work. They might identify it as, I lost my job and that brought up a lot of emotions. They might identify it as, like, the work can look really different based on the person. And I think you're right. Like, as long as you're consciously aware of, like, choosing to move through those things rather than to continue to play out your stories, the best thing, Rena, that you can do is to focus on yourself and your situation and just continue using your twin flame as that mirror to say, okay, what is this bringing up for me now? What is this triggering in me now? What is this doubt telling me now? You know, and like keep asking yourself those questions, right? Taking the focus off of them and what they're doing it and putting it back on myself and yourself. And, you know, just keep moving through the emotions as they come up. And if you're looking for a supportive community, when you do this work, we are now taking applications for our second round of Twin Flame Path to Awakening group coaching 2025 April. So this course is absolutely incredible. It's 6 months long. It's with other twin flames, other twin flames that are actually aligned on your same path. So one of the things that our group now has said has been the most healing for them is literally talking to other twin flames who are going through the same thing. They said like literally doing this in a group has healed them so much because of the spaces that are being able to be held by each other. Yeah. So actually being in a safe, secure, supportive community catalyzes your healing. And it's actually Carl Jung who says we can only heal our relational wounds through relationships. So if you've been that lone wolf on your twin flame journey, you've been going it alone, probably the one thing that you actually need is to invite other people into your journey, but not just any other day people. You know, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the twin flame journey, that don't get what this is. So invite in people that do get what this is. And if that sounds like something you want to take advantage of, we are now offering an early bird discount if you sign up before March 8th. You get $400 off the total course price. So we do offer completely flexible payment plans. Before I get too much into the spiel, you can apply down below to work with us. Just know it takes us some time to review the applications and get back to you on whether you'd be a good fit or not. So yeah, super duper excited about April 2025 round 2. We've made some incredible changes based on the beta testers that we've been working with. They have literally been invaluable in this process, so we're sending lots of love to them. And yeah, if you want to apply down below, we will review your application and we'll see you on the inside. And then what's really interesting is this leads us then into the second question, which is from, and excuse you guys if we don't get the
pronunciation
names always
correct.
Right. So sorry if we're not 100% amazing on the pronunciations. We are so super lucky to have quite an extensive cultural and global audience. But this question comes from Shafi or Shafi. How would you say it? Shafi? Shafi.
Shafi? I'm not too sure.
You can always let us know in the comments below if you're watching this. Thank you for your question, and it really, really helped us to actually work through the previous question. So what's really interesting here, okay, so we'll read the question for you guys. So Shafi says, how to let go control in my twin flame journey and truly surrender. Even after doing the inner work and healing, I still feel I'm holding on to control and trying to control the journey rather than leaving it to God and divine timing. So what's interesting is when you have truly, so leading from Rena's question into Shafi's question, when you've truly done the inner work, the only thing left for you to do is let go of control. Ride. Yeah. That's literally the only thing you can do. And that's also why, so people oftentimes think that in the feminine, right? The feminine is the surrender. It is the letting go of control. But people will oftentimes think that that's a passive thing and that there's no more work to be done. Well, actually the work is the letting go of control. The work then turns into the surrender. Like, how can I sit in this doubt? How can I sit in this feeling of uncertainty? And what emotions is that bringing up for me? And then you do the work around that. So do you have any specific advice for Shafi's question of surrendering and letting go of control?
It's a difficult one because, I mean, people always say it's easy. You just let go and you just go with the flow. And it's always one of the things that's easier said than done. Letting go of control and just allowing things to be the way they are can be very scary. But when you stop trying to focus so hard on one thing and that's everything, and you kind of forget about the other things happening around you, what happens quite often is it actually takes you further away from that, because ultimately in life, when things are coming your way, you need to be aware of other things that are happening around you in order for things to actually fall in place, because the other things that are happening during that time process, it's all there to teach you the lessons to get to where you want to go. So say you want to get from here to here, but along the way there's a bunch of obstacles. You need to go through those obstacles and learn lessons and strengths and weaknesses about yourself in order to, when you get to the final point, be at your optimum to actually succeed in that space. So a lot of the times you really have to kind of surrender yourself. You can be like, okay, well, whatever happens. Let me just be along for the journey. Let me give my all into it and just enjoy it. I mean, it's the beautiful part about life is sometimes it's difficult, but you just got to make the most out of every situation. And sometimes that is letting go of control and allowing things to be the way they are, because everything happens for a reason and everything does work out at the end.
So what I hear you really saying is there's a lot of trust that needs to happen, which is really interesting, because I love that quote. That's the opposite. Like, people often think the opposite of anxiety is calm, but actually the opposite of anxiety is faith or is trust, right? Because we're anxious or we're fearful of this thing that may or may not happen. But if we just employ trust, then that kind of is able to fall away a little bit. So one of my personal, when I'm faced with a situation, and this happens for me a lot if I'm like manifesting something, right? Where I want something to come into fruition, but I know I'm attached to the outcome, right? Like, I want a certain outcome to happen in order to feel fulfilled. When that's going on, I realize consciously, like, oh, I'm way too attached to this. I need to let go of my attachment to it. I need to surrender and let go of control. And so what I personally do, and I find this, I did this repeatedly during our separation, is I actually play out the worst case scenario. Whatever I'm afraid of happening or afraid of not happening, I actually play that out completely. I sit with myself in a corner with my journal and I actually say, what emotions would I experience? How would I feel if this truly happened? So let's use your twin flame, for example. Shafi, if you're sitting there and you're like, okay, my biggest fear is that my twin flame is going to reject me and we never come into union, then what you need to do is then you sit with that and you actually go through, and this is what a lot of meditators and like spiritual gurus call dying before you die. You actually play out that worst case scenario and experience the emotions and feel it viscerally in your body before and if it never even actually happens, right? Because the point of doing this, so if you think about it with the twin flame, right? The biggest fear is that maybe they aren't the one for you. You never come into union. Maybe I'm going to feel like I failed. Maybe I'm going to feel like completely crushed and brokenhearted and just like I will never be repaired. And you feel just completely disappointed and abandoned and rejected, and all of those absolutely horrible, terrifying emotions that you could possibly feel from another person. Makes you feel like, oh, I was never worthy of the love that I truly desired. And when you can sit through that and you process that and you let yourself grieve that relationship, that is the true letting go, like energetically and spiritually, is you like basically you accept like this person could die, right? This person sitting next to me could die and I could be all alone again. And you process that grief and you move through that. What that actually does is you die that death and you realize you can still survive it, right? You realize you're still going to actually be okay on the other side. The ego's biggest fear is that it's not going to be able to survive whatever you're fearing is going to happen or not happen. So when you can actually move through that on a very visceral, physical, emotional level, what you'll free up is space within you to realize, okay, I can actually survive that. Like my biggest fears, I can actually move forward and still be okay. And what that does on an energetic level is it reduces your resistance to that outcome, right? Yeah. So outcomes will play out because we have resistance, right? What is that quote? Resistance, it's like a rhyme. It's something about resistance. If you guys know what I'm talking about, put it in the comments. I can't remember it right now.
Nothing can, nothing can go wrong.
No, it's not that. But it is about resistance, and it's kind of about like your focus, and your focus brings more of what you resist persists. Right? So if you have something that you're resisting, that's going to keep showing up for you and keep showing up for you and keep showing up until you lose that resistance. So the way to lose the resistance is to play out that scenario, whatever the worst case may be, and then know that you actually did survive that because you played it out, right? And you did survive and you were okay and you were all the emotions that could come up, but you still survived it. And that gives you a sense of freedom of, okay, now, no matter what happens, I know I'm capable of being okay. I'm capable of surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Yeah. So those are our 2 questions for today. Do you have any other advice for Rena or Shafi?
I think you've covered more than I can even think of, to be honest. Just one of those days I can just sit in the office and Serena does all the talking.
You just get to sit there and look pretty.
I try.
So yeah, if you guys have questions, definitely either put it in the comments below or fill out the form and we will answer it here on the channel. Thank you so much, Rena and Shafi, for answering the call and for putting your questions up there for us and for the rest of the world to see. Super duper duper exciting. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to comment down below and reach out. And if you guys are going through this too, let us know what's been the most difficult part of your journey thus far. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for being here today.
Bye.
Bye.